Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing a Murderer. Before we get started, if you like my work, take a moment to push like. You can hit the subscribe button and you can get notifications whenever we have new uploads. How? Well, hit the notification bell. So we're still talking about this Lori Vallow case. It's probably one of the craziest cases ever. Here we are 3 years later and still being shocked. So trial's going right now for Lori Vallow. And we've had a few shocking details come out, not very much to be honest, until yesterday when a witness by the name of Audrey testified some very shocking accusations saying that Lori Vallow threatened her life. Something several people who have been attached to Lori has said about her, starting with Joe Ryan, Charles Vallow, and Audrey now. They've been trying to place the blame onto Chad Daybell, knowing that he does have equal responsibility in this case, but he cannot take all the blame because Lori was doing these threatenings way before he ever come along. In fact, he doesn't have a history of threatening and killing people. Lori does. Sadly, I think it's the people that were surrounding her that didn't take this very seriously that allowed it to go on, made it worse, and it turned out the way it did today. In fact, I think it's Lori Vallow's family members, including Kay Woodcock and her parents, siblings, cousins, well, they're all being devastated by this case. Lori has taken away everything from everyone around her. And if she would have kept going, there's no doubt in my mind she would have destroyed a lot more people on her wake. What do you think? Drop it below. So let's go ahead and talk about this new witness, Audrey. We've heard that name a time or two. We weren't getting a lot of details on this, especially about Audrey or anybody else that's outside of Melanie Gibb or Zelima or Melanie. I think this was to protect someone, and it's not Audrey, it's themselves. One thing we do know is Zelima and Melanie Gibb both have selective memories. And there's no way that they didn't know anything that was going on. If Audrey caught on, why didn't they? Because they were more inside. Lori Vallow is said to have been the conspirator in this case, but a lot of people suspect that she had a lot to do with all these lives that have been taken away from innocent people. And how could she do this to her own blood children? Well, I've been researching her a lot, and I just don't see anything that ever shows that she's ever had any kind of bond with anyone. Not really. Lori Vallow seemed to love to live for what she could take or destroy or turn people into. Meaning she enjoyed molding people like a piece of clay. What could she sculpture these people into? We know immediately that once Lori gets in someone's life, she wants to change their hair or change their clothing. She's ordered clothes for Chad. In fact, one of the first things that she ever does with a lot of people is persuade them to let her do something with their hair or style. This means a lot to Lori. Why? Because she's a manipulator. She's a control freak. It's her way or the highway, people. She could care less what anyone else thinks. Now let's talk about Audrey, who took the stand. A lot of people are saying, why did she wait so long to come forward? Well, according to Audrey, she said that she was out of this group before the police come looking for JJ. And if you think about the rest of these people in this group, like Melanie Gibb and Zelima, she was the first one to step out of there and do the right thing, do a godly thing. The poor girl was trying to find fellow God supporters, but ended up finding Satan and his minions, to be honest. So was Lori Vallow really there for God? I don't think so. A lot of people are saying that she might have been and she was just crazy. No, Lori Vallow is not stupid, people. Nowhere close to stupid. She can play any part you want her to be. And she'll do this to manipulate and get the outcome she wants or to get you to do what she wants you to. She's a very good manipulator. All right, let's talk about this witness a little bit. She says she's living in Missouri now, but she was living in Utah. And guys, my mic is just not good. Anyhow, Aubrey had just went to the St. George conference, which we just did Life Beyond the Grave on. That's how Lori and Chad met. Preparing a People conference hosted by no other than Michael and Nancy James, Preparing a People. She says that she meets Chad Daybell. And after that, the conference is over, she says that Chad reaches out to her on Facebook. He asked Audrey to be her friend because he didn't have enough time to talk to Lori. We all know why, because he's a married man that has children. And Audrey's like, sure. Now let's think about this. So if you're just coming into this, she didn't know who Chad Daybell was. She finds out at the conference. She doesn't know who any of these people are, but they're being sponsored by a big event or conference, a media service. They must be somebody special. So Audrey's kind of just thrown in there to kind of, learn how to swim for herself. It's around June of 2019, and Charles Vallow is still alive, that Aubrey says that she attends another conference. So does Lori. Lori's staying in a hotel.
Did you spend any time with Lori?
Yes.
Do you recall who else visited with her and you?
Zulema was there, and Melanie Gibb, and there was some other women that I didn't know.
She said that they talked for a while, but she don't remember what they talked about. But at the very end, Lori brings up that she wants to work on her husband, Charles Vallow.
So when you say that she wanted to work on her husband, Charles, what does that mean?
Do you want me to back up a little bit?
Sure.
So at some time close to that time, when I had seen her again after not seeing her for a long time, she all of a sudden, out of the blue, brought up all of this stuff about zombies and people being possessed. Is kind of the idea of that, and I hadn't heard of that before and had no basis for that, and that's why she brought that up in the hotel room, because that was something she was doing herself.
Okay, so let's just break that down a little bit to make it a little more clear. So you mentioned that sometime before this she was talking about zombies and people being possessed. How was she talking to you about that?
On the phone.
Okay.
I hadn't talked to her in like 3 weeks, and all of a sudden she brought up all of this things she had learned, and it came out of the middle of nowhere. And then she asked my thoughts about it, and I said I didn't have a basis for it, and it made me feel uncomfortable. But she was basically alluding to people, the term, I guess, that eventually she called it was zombies, and that it was people being possessed or having the spirit like connected to them or something.
Okay. And was the spirit good or bad or light or dark?
It's supposed to be bad.
Okay.
Anyone following this case know that a zombie is a dark spirit. In most cases, the way that they refer to it as a demon or a bad, evil, malevolent spirit that has basically taken over a body where their original spirit had already left. So they're driving this body, but the true soul that was in that body is no longer there. A lot of people wondered if Lori believed in this, and for me, I don't think so. I think this was just manipulation to find excuses to do what she wanted to do. But, that's just my opinion. So Aubrey says that they're at this conference. She goes to Lori's hotel along with the zombie group. That would be Zelima, Melanie Gibb, Melanie Pawlowski. For some reason, they leave her name out of this. Does she know something we don't? Is she going to testify at some point against her with some major shocking testimony? It's just odd how she's one of Lori's main leaders in this group. She's not being mentioned very often. And while in that hotel, they began to do their castings to get this evil, malevolent spirit out of Charles' body. So let's hear this. Real quick, there's things Aubrey's leaving out here. You got to remember that Serena has already told us that, one of them is carrying the power of water, one of them carrying the power of earthquakes, and so on. And Aubrey doesn't bring this up. And so these women seem to be protecting each other somewhat.
People were just kind of chatting and, just small talk kind of thing. And then she brought up saying that she wanted to, work on trying to get a negative spirit out of Charles. And, but actually, I should say, at first it was just everyone started holding hands, and I didn't know what they were doing. And I thought maybe there was going to be a group prayer or something. And so they all held hands, and I joined hands as well, thinking it was going to be prayer. And then she started talking, basically to say that she was going to try to get a spirit out of Charles, and each woman would say something. And then,
so what do you recall Lori saying?
I don't remember exact words, but things like knives and fire and weapons that you would try to use to, that kind of an idea.
So like I said, Lori's probably introducing, this is my idea, most likely based off the testimonies we've heard before, that we're going to use these weapons to get this spirit out of this body. And then she actually will call on the next lady to do her job, whether it be through water, because water, according to Serena, can purify the body. Aubrey goes on to say that she didn't know this term castings, and she really didn't know what was going on until after the fact. So when it got to her, she basically didn't know what to do. She just said a prayer, just like Melanie Gibbs said she did. According to Melanie Gibbs, she said she didn't feel none too comfortable either. Now, Aubrey said as soon as they were through doing this casting thing, she left because she just felt so uncomfortable. Now, she says she continues to stay in contact with Lori by phone for a little while. Interestingly, like I said, Chad Daybell reaches out to this girl over Facebook and asks her to be Lori's friend. She even has dinner with Chad and his wife, Tammy. And Audrey says she likes Tammy Daybell very, very much. At some point, Chad is communicating with Aubrey and tells her about his near-death experience. He was visited by a deceased relative who said Tammy would pass away before she turned 50. And when does he tell her this? Somewhere at the end of January and the beginning of February of 2019. At some point through this friendship, she said that Chad mentions to her that he's going to get married. And this is before Tammy Daybell has died. And that he's going to get married to Lori Vallow. Imagine that. So remember we mentioned the word grooming. That's exactly what Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell are doing to this group of people. They're grooming them. They're drawing them in by telling them they have these special powers and that he can see, who they were in past lives. And so they tell Aubrey that she had actually been married to the Jesus. As for Chad, he had been people like Methuselah, or James the Just. He also indicates that sometime within all of those past lives that Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, they have met and they have been married. At some point, Audrey moves away to Missouri. So she gets a little bit of distance between Lori Vallow, Chad, and them, a lot more distance than Utah. Then suddenly one day she gets a phone call, and it's from Lori, and she's got her niece, Melanie Boudreau, with her. And Lori asked to come visit there so that they've never seen any of the church historical sites and things like that. And they wanted to get away for a little bit. It's in the first part of October, so this is a time that Brandon Boudreau is going to be attacked, as well as Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy Daybell. Even worse, the kids are nowhere to be found. Nobody has seen Tylee or JJ. No one had seen Tylee Ryan for nearly a month now, and it was going on to be several weeks for JJ. Now, she mentions Chad again later on, saying that he had this ranking system where he was ranking people light and dark. But Lori was the main person that she was dealing with when it come to labeling people either light or dark or zombie. We're not able to get a complete story of how that went down, who became a zombie first and how that went. Other than she said she knows that Charles Vallow was one of the first zombies. Later in her friendship, she sees or hears that Tylee and JJ become zombies. Then finally, Tammy Daybell. And this is what gets to her the most. I think out of everything that she talked about was Tammy. I think she realized it's around that time what was really going on when you become a zombie. She always mentions the end of the friendship, and that seems to be very important to her, and important that you understand that she ended this friendship.
Later, at the end of the friendship, she said that her children were.
Anyone else?
And Tammy.
Okay.
Yes.
And so her children, can you just give me their names again?
Tylee and JJ.
So these included Charles, Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. Is that right? Was there anyone else that she talked about being dark?
Yes. Melanie Boudreau, one or two of her children.
Okay.
So that's a real important thing to hear. There were so many dark people. I mean, some of them, they didn't even understand who was dark. At least not all of them. They weren't on the same page. Melanie Gibb knew that Kay Woodcock was now dark. Brandon Boudreau was dark. And now Lori was telling her niece that her two children were dark. And what people don't understand is why Melanie Boudreau continued to support Lori Vallow now that she knows what is happening to these kids when they go dark. We all seen the interview where she was defending Lori. And then she tried, when Ian started talking to the FBI and saying, look, I'll do these recordings for you. I will help you try to find JJ and Tylee. He starts sharing everything he learns as far as the paperwork where they are ranking people light and dark, who are zombies, the outlining and summary of how they use weapons and how you move up in the ranks. These are spiritual weapons, by the way. And how Melanie Boudreau had said that she had a vision that her kids were going to die. Later on, they tried to change that wording to dreams. I had a nightmare dream is what they tried to pass it off as. But it was basically, a dream is the same thing. You're sleeping, you're having a revelation for them. So right now, Melanie Boudreau and Ian Pulaski, they're all trying to fight to get custody or have some custody time with their kids from other marriages. But so they're trying to straighten their butts out, but hopefully the courts will not allow this. Now let's go back to what Aubrey was talking about. So Lori and Melanie Kowalski, which we know around this time, Brandon Boudreaux is being shot at. Tammy has an attempted shooting. They're staying in a hotel, and Aubrey says she spent the day with them, and her house was a distance away, so she decides to stay the night in the hotel with these two ladies. She said everything was going fine and everything was great until
back to my house, which was a distance away, and it was going great. And then basically she brought up the idea of working on Tammy.
Okay. And again, when you say working on, what did you guys do?
She said that Tammy had a spirit that was in her and needed to be taken out. And I told her I did not want to help and that I did not want to participate. And she
so here she's struggling. She's crying.
sorry.
It's okay. If you need to get some water.
She highly pressured me, saying, "You're supposed to be my friend, you're supposed to help me. Like Chad asked you to be my friend." And I reiterated that I didn't want to. And she kept on, and this was later in the night. And I didn't know, I didn't do those things in my own life. And I said that I would say a prayer. And basically, I said a prayer to my Father saying, "Okay, I don't know what's going on. If there is something going on with Tammy and it needs to be taken out, I ask for thee to help her. For thine angels to help her. And I asked that she would be able to feel the love of God." And ended the prayer.
Now, those of you that don't know this case very well, or Lori very well, this is what I'm talking about. She's very manipulative, and I think she actually mimicked Lori to a T there. I know I wasn't there, but that's what Lori sounds like. This is the way that she treats everyone, including her husband, her children, her brother, Alex Cox. She had been, well, remember, someone had witnessed her yelling at her brother, telling him basically, you're not doing what I asked you to do, that you're failing the family. So the same exact manipulation tactics she always used. And guys, for me, I think why I'm so interested in this is not only getting the truth of who she is out there, and to do this for the kids and those other victims that can't talk. She's probably one of the most evil females I've ever known. And I think she will continue to hold that title, most likely forever. So here's this young lady. Lori understands weak people. I'm not calling her weak in a negative way. People who have a kind heart. People who can't say no. And she chews on their ear until she gets what she wants. Hopefully, the witnesses that are still coming forward, don't let her do that to you guys. She cannot hurt you anymore. She does notice that Lori and Chad are kind of being lovey-dovey with one another, and they're both married. What kind of people of God do this? So imagine her, she's coming to this conference. This conference is supposed to be about what? God's love, being a godly symbol for others. And these authors and speakers, they're doing these things that she's going, what the world is going on? And she just stepped in a little too far when she talked to Chad Daybell. While she didn't see them kissing and hugging like Melanie Gibbs, she says, You could tell that there was something going on. There was a vibe there. You could tell that Aubrey was still holding back something that was scaring her to death. It was obvious that Aubrey, her connection to these people would affect her the rest of her life. So she jumps back in the past of when she first met Lori, which is the first few times, in February of 2019. And again, for some reason, they mentioned Chad asked her to be Lori's friend.
He asked me to be her friend. And that she needed a friend, and I said, okay.
Did he say why she needed a friend?
He said that he couldn't talk to her all the time, and that maybe I could be someone to like uplift her or, be a friend.
Okay. And you mentioned this occurred in February. Would that have been the February of the next year?
Yes, 2019.
Okay. And when you talked with Chad, how were you talking with Chad?
I was talking with him on the phone.
Okay. So he asked you this over the phone about
Yes.
Okay. And how often would you say that you talked with Lori on the phone after that?
Usually it was every few weeks, but there was times that it was every couple weeks or a week, but for the most part every few weeks.
Did you get to know each other over the phone?
Somewhat. We talked about more so spiritual things, not as much things going on in personal life stuff.
Okay.
The next time that Aubrey sees Lori in person would be the summer of 2019. They're all going to a scriptural-based event in Utah. So how ironic is this, guys? So you have this young lady, she's trying to do good things, be a good person, go to these events that are about God and meet good people. But guess what? That's not what's happening for her. There are some really dark people there. And if I could, my opinion is this. If there is ever demons, these people are them. Demons going to these events, pretending to be prophets of God, messengers of God. Ironically, deeming people zombies or dark spirits. So this is around the Salt Lake City area. And she believes this is happening probably the end of June or the beginning of July. And during this time, she was still living in Utah. Lori and her posse arrive, and she stays in a hotel. Prosecuting attorney, Miss Blake, asked her, who did you spend time with there? So here's that audio.
Do you recall who else visited with her and you?
Zulema was there, and Melanie Gibb, and there was some other women that I didn't know.
And what did Lori talk about at that time?
I don't remember what was talked about, but at the end of being there, she brought up wanting to work on her husband at the time.
Okay, and do you know who her husband at the time was?
Charles.
So they're in this hotel room, and at the end of the hanging out session, I guess, they are going to talk about casting out the dark spirit in Charles Vallow. It wasn't long ago that Lori had suddenly out of the blue brought up zombies and people being possessed. And Aubrey says, I really haven't heard of that before, so this was new to her. She says at the hotel room, Lori was the definite leader of what was going on when it come to casting out. She was the one bringing it up. She was the one leading it. So she's in that hotel room. She sees everyone else doing these things, and she's not certain if, how to react. She didn't feel comfortable. But then again, we've all heard of peer pressure.
Then
That's what she insinuates, that she felt like she was under pressure.
Like work on trying to get a negative spirit out of Charles. And, but actually, I should say, at first it was just like everyone started holding hands, and I didn't know what they were doing. And I thought maybe there was going to be like a group prayer or something. And so they all held hands, and I joined hands as well, thinking it was going to be a prayer. And then she started talking, basically to say that she was going to try to get a spirit out of Charles. And each woman would say something. And then...
So what do you recall Lori saying?
I don't remember exact words, but things like knives and fire and like weapons that you would try to use to, that kind of an idea. When it got to me, I didn't feel comfortable and didn't say anything. And then as soon as that was over, I left about like religious things or spiritual experiences.
Okay. Do you recall talking to Lori about her move to Rexford?
Yes.
And do you know where Chad was living at the time?
He was living in Rexburg.
Do you recall talking to Lori in late August or September 2019 about her daughter Tylee?
Yes, there was a few times in the fall that I asked her how her daughter was doing. When I stayed at her house in November 2018, I met her daughter for a few minutes. And so in the fall of 2019, I asked every once in a while, like, how's Tylee doing? Because she was at college. And towards the end of the friendship, when I asked her how's she doing at BYU, she said that she doesn't talk to me very much these days.
So Audrey had actually met Tylee at one of the conferences that they went to. She had met JJ for like 5 minutes, and she met Tammy Daybell once. She liked them all. But that is a very weird statement to say, that she doesn't really talk to me much these days, especially after noticing that all these zombies are, well, they're dying. Because there's a point where she learns that Tylee and JJ were zombies. She had the opportunity to spend time with Tammy, her son Garth, and Chad while having dinner together. So here she is. She's having dinner with this Tammy Daybell, and she must think about these things that she's hearing from Lori and Chad, and how Tammy most likely won't live to be 50. How awkward would that be to sit there? But knowing me, I would be like, hey, you know what your husband said? He said, he expected that you weren't going to make it to 50. So remember the prior lives and probations? Well, she describes some of that for us here.
What do you remember about that?
He said that he had been Methuselah, and he said that he had been an apostle at the time of Jesus Christ, James.
Okay. And do you recall if Lori and Chad indicated a belief that they had been married in previous lives?
Yes.
So near the latter end of the month of October 2019, Lori Vallow asked Audrey to come out and visit her and Melanie Boudreaux in Hawaii. This didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and it seemed kind of scary that they were asking her to come out there to Hawaii. They invited her because Melanie Boudreaux was going through another hard time, and she needed a friend. Audrey saying that she had a good heart. She said, sure, I'll be her friend. So she seems like the type of girl, if you reach out for help, she wants to help you. I'm pretty certain something more went on in Hawaii that she's not sharing with us, but I mean, can you blame her? The girl is scared to death still. She says when she gets there, she finds out something quite devastating.
When I got there, shortly after getting there, Lori told me that Tammy had passed away, and I didn't know. I asked her when, and she said it'd been about a week. I asked her, how did she pass away? And she said in her sleep.
So she's there already, so they take her on a bike ride and take her and spend some time with her on the beach. During her time there, she mentions something about Lori being aggravated. She doesn't tell us why, but I think we have a good idea why now that we know some things that she shares. It's because Lori is worried probably that she's going to open her mouth. That's speculation, but that's what I think.
And what did you observe about Lori's behavior while you were in Hawaii?
She seemed agitated and snippy toward Melanie. It's just different emotions. Other times she would like swing and be like happy, but overall, her behavior seemed different. I had not seen her behavior like that. I hadn't seen her much in person, but she had been nice and very, I don't know, but at that time, she seemed agitated or, like I said, snippy.
So there's your clue, snippy. So she's getting snippy with her and Melanie. The thing is nobody knows exactly how Melanie Boudreaux feels about this. All we know is when she was on an interview, she was defending Lori with all that she had. For some reason, Audrey says she doesn't feel comfortable. Lori's preparing to leave, and it's on a Wednesday. Though she doesn't tell them that she's uncomfortable with them, she just wants to leave. They kind of say, well, you just got here. Lori says that she wants to leave, but Melanie Boudreaux says, no, I'm not ready to leave yet. And that she doesn't want to be alone. So it almost seems like, why are they setting her up to be with Melanie Boudreaux? That's very interesting to me. She stays there several more days and then leaves on a Sunday. Then she tells Melanie, though she doesn't want to, that she will fly with her back to Idaho where Lori is. She says she can give her condolences to Garth at least in person.
Because I knew that he'd been very close to his mom. And then also to pay my condolences to Chad.
And so that's why you decided to visit Idaho?
Yes.
Where did you stay while you were in Idaho?
In Lori's condo.
And when you were there, did you observe Lori and Chad together?
I did.
How did they act towards each other?
Very romantic.
Did they physically touch each other?
Yes.
What did you observe?
They were kissing and hugging.
And was that just in the residence, or was there anywhere else that you observed this?
I observed it in the residence.
Okay. And do you recall who else was in Lori's residence in Rexburg when you stayed there?
Melanie stayed in one of the rooms.
Okay.
Yes.
Was there anyone else there?
No.
So at the time we're hearing this, we don't know. We think it's the fact that Tammy has passed away, and she thought that it had something to do with Lori. This is why she's so emotional, but that's not why she's so emotional. I believe that it's because of what happens. This comes out of the blue because defense opened the door for prosecution. And so, well, here it is.
All right, that'll conclude the cross-examination then. Ms. Rawlings, would you like to conduct redirect?
Yes, briefly, Your Honor. clarify some things. I think council asked you if you were in 5 states with Chad and Lori. Chad wasn't with you in Hawaii, right?
That's correct.
And he wasn't there in Missouri.
No, he was not.
Okay. And so when you were participating in these castings or these circles or however you want to describe them, whose hotel rooms were they taking place in?
Theirs.
And when you say theirs,
Lori's.
so it was Lori's.
Yes.
And she was the one who talked to you about that, right?
Yes.
And she's the one who told you the person that the casting needed to be done on, right?
Yes.
Now, the one on Charles in Utah, I think I asked you if you heard that he died later. Is that right?
Yes.
He was killed.
Yes.
And then there was one casting conducted on Tammy, right?
Yes.
And then she died.
Yes.
Okay. And I think,
well, I mean, they were working on their own, doing those things.
yeah. I think defense counsel kind of asked you about this friendship and why you terminated it, and you said that you were scared or in fear. Why was that?
Because of a conversation.
And who was the conversation with?
Lori.
Did she make threats to you?
She did.
What did she say? What threats did she make to you?
Your Honor, I think this is outside the
She
scope
threatened
of
to kill me.
I'd object.
Hold on just a minute. It came up on cross-examination, so it's within the scope of cross and proper redirect. Ms. Rollins, you can re-ask the question.
What's the time and place of this conversation?
And I think, Audrey, you indicated this was when defense counsel asked you why you ended the friendship, and that was in what month?
In October 2019.
Okay.
Yes, I had already made plans to leave because I prayed about it and felt like I needed to leave and end the friendship. And I was leaving early the next morning. And Lori and I were the only ones in the hall in her place at the time. And I told her that I was going to go upstairs and pack my bag and just go to bed early because I didn't want to spend more time with her. And as I went to go and do that, I asked her the question, is there anything weird going on that I don't know about? And she said, no. What do you mean? And I said, I don't know anything. And she said, no. So I took her at her word because I'm a trusting person. And as soon as I turned to start to go up the stairs, she started laughing. The kind of laugh as if you're laughing at someone or think something's hilarious. And she said to me, you're so naive and too trusting. You're like a little child. You'll believe anything anyone would tell you. And she said, you think the world is all unicorns and rainbows. You go around helping people and serving them. Well, I've got news for you. Not everyone's a good person. And not everyone can afford to be so nice and kind. And as she said that
So I want to just focus on what threats she made to you.
She threatened to kill me.
Okay. Did she say how?
Yes. She said that she would cut me up. And something about that she wasn't in the mental place to do that, but that she would get herself in that place to be able to do it. But that she didn't want to have to because it'd be so messy and there'd be so much blood. And bleach and something about trash bags. And that she would bury me worse. No one would ever find me.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Rawlings.
Can I regress on that?
You may, Mr. Archibald.
Lori's defense attorney comes in there cold and heartless. It is clear that he is one of them. It's one thing to do your job, and it's one thing to seem like you're threatening and tormenting somebody on a stand.
Idaho is before you go to the temple or after you go to the temple?
After.
And so you're saying she starts laughing and talks about unicorns and rainbows, and that she would cut me up and put me in trash bags.
So, yeah, she mentioned trash bags.
Why?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Did she ever say, I killed my kids and I'm going to kill you too?
Objection beyond the scope.
Overruled.
No, I knew nothing about her children.
Right? Did she say, I killed Charles and I'll kill you too?
She didn't talk about Charles.
Nothing like that, right?
She brought up being at the scene, watching someone take their last breaths.
That pissed the defense off. Now, it seems that the defense is very personal on this, and I have questions about that. This isn't a man that seems to be doing his job. This seems to be a man that might be liking it a little too much. The defense team seems to be enjoying the deaths of these people and the people in pain. They throw up peace signs and laugh and joke. I have not been impressed with this defense team, and the farther we go on, the worse it gets. So it's not this girl ain't been through enough already. She's scared to death, probably has post-traumatic syndrome. She's probably scared to death to trust anybody else that are supposed to be people of God, for gosh sake. Losing trust in people, that's very valuable. It's more valuable than money or gold. Lori and Chad have destroyed so many people's lives, and this, to me, was very emotional. Lori Vallow has threatened Joseph Ryan to kill him. She's threatened Charles to kill him. She killed her own children. Then she helped kill an innocent woman who did nothing wrong. And there's no doubt in my mind that she would have killed more if she hadn't been stopped. And we will find out when this trial is over if they find her guilty of all these things she's accused of. And the fact that they took the death penalty off the table for her is insane. Share what you think below. But I have never seen a darker person in my entire life as Lori Vallow. She is a demon sent to this earth to destroy you. So sad. Her poor family, her poor kids, her poor friends, her poor church, poor everyone that's ever been around her. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget about these faces, these girls that continue to go on missing. Please share their story. And if you like my work, you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also donate to see more videos at Patreon. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.